Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if that guy pretending to be super woke is actually genuine, or just trying to impress you? Well, this fascinating new paper dives deep into that exact idea, looking at how we signal our true selves and what happens when those signals might be fake. This paper talks about this new trend, especially online, of what they call the performative male. Basically, it is a young guy who seems to adopt tastes and interests that are coded as feminine or progressive, like drinking matcha, carrying tote bags, or reading certain books. The whole point, according to this social trend, is to appear desirable. Now, the easy explanation is just that it is a mating display like a peacock showing off its fancy feathers. But this research gets way more interesting because it asks a deeper question: what if those signals are super cheap to produce? In the world of evolutionary biology, signals usually have to be costly to be honest. Think about it. If it is hard or expensive for a low-quality individual to fake a signal, then you can trust that someone displaying it actually has the good quality they're advertising. But what if the signals are things like a tote bag or a certain book? They barely cost anything to get. According to the old rules, these cheap signals should be quickly flooded by fakes and lose all their meaning. But that's not quite what happens with the performative male idea. People are still paying attention, and even more importantly, others are actively calling out these guys as performative. This suggests the signal isn't totally meaningless. So, how does a signal that is so easy to fake still seem to work? Or at least, how do people try to make sure it's honest? The paper proposes that honesty doesn't always come from the cost of producing the signal itself, but from the cost of being caught faking it. If people who are deceived can punish the cheater, then even cheap signals can be kept honest. The whole performative male discourse, with its memes and checklists, and even contests, might be that punishment system in action. It's like social policing. The label performative isn't just a description, it's an enforcement mechanism. But here is the twist. This paper argues that the performative male is actually the toughest case for this idea, because the qualities these guys are supposedly advertising, things like sensitivity or progressive values, are hard to verify right away. You can't know if someone is truly kind or feminist just by looking at their tote bag. It takes time and the course of a relationship to really see someone's character, so the social cost doesn't fully restore honesty to the cheap token. Instead, it taxes the counterfeit. It pushes people away from just using those cheap, easy-to-fake signals and towards things that are harder to fake. To understand this better, the researchers break down how honesty is maintained in signals into 4 different types. First, there are indices, which are unfakeable because they're directly tied to the quality they signal, like body size related to call frequency. Then there are handicaps, where the signal is costly to produce, like an elaborate peacock tail. Only the fittest can afford it. Third are conventional signals stabilized by social cost, like status badges in animals, where cheating is punished by rivals or group members. This is where the performative male signals seem to fit initially. And finally, there are systems where deception invades and persists, like mimicry in insects. A really interesting comparison is made to the nursery web spider. Male spiders offer a wrapped prey item as a nuptial gift to females. Females usually prefer these gifts, and it leads to more mating success. However, some males cheat. They wrap up worthless things like dried husks to make it look like a real gift. The female can't tell it's fake until Chess already accepted it and started feeding, by which point mating is underway. If she discovers the fraud, she cuts the copulation short. It's a bit like the performative male. The display, the gift, or the tote bag gets accepted, but the true quality, the actual meal, or the genuine character is revealed too late. The social cost is there, but it's applied after some benefit has already been gained. The paper also takes on the very word performative. It notes Therese everyday meaning of fake or for show, but also a more complex idea from philosophy, where someone's identity is shaped through their actions, not necessarily reflecting a hidden, true self. The researchers clarified that their argument doesn't rely on the idea of a hidden, true self. Instead, they focus on whether displayed behavior, like carrying a tote bag, actually matches or predicts later conduct, like how someone treats a partner. A counterfeit in this context is a mismatch between how someone appears and how they actually act over time. This is where the human performative male example becomes a kind of natural experiment. Unlike in animals, we can actually see and hear people talking about these signals, their fakeness, and the policing of them in real time. The researchers believe this whole phenomenon, the online discourse, the labeling, it's a way for society to figure out how to deal with cheap signals that advertise hard-to-verify qualities. The crucial insight is that the policing, the social cost, doesn't necessarily restore honesty to the cheap signal. Instead, it taxes the counterfeit. It discourages the most obvious fakes and pushes people towards signals that are harder to fake. One of the key predictions is that the criticism isn't about being feminine, but about being easy to fake. If a signal is genuinely hard to fake, like a long history of good behavior or a significant costly commitment, it will be accepted even if it is something that would otherwise be seen as feminine. The real target is the cheap, trendy token. This leads to another prediction. People will discount signals that are too trendy or easy to assemble. But if that cheap signal is backed up by something genuinely hard to fake, like a documented history of good deeds or a real sacrifice, then the signal regains its weight. It's like saying, okay, the tote bag is whatever. But look at the years of consistent volunteering this person has done. That corroboration is what restores trust. The type of signals used will also change depending on the local culture. What is considered progressive or desirable will vary, so the specific tokens, the books, the brands, the interests will change too, while the underlying strategy of trying to signal these qualities remains. The intensity of the policing will also increase as more people use the cheap signals and their reliability goes down. It's not just about being visible, but about being cheap and becoming less trustworthy over time. Over time, the paper predicts that the really flashy, obvious performative displays will start to fade. People will become more subtle, or they'll do what is called counter-signaling. Basically, they'll mock the performative male to signal that they are not like that, and then they'll back it up with genuinely hard, fake evidence of their good qualities. The whole system drifts towards under-advertisement, where people are more reserved and rely on genuine, hard-to-forge actions to prove themselves. So, what does this all mean? The paper argues that while the social policing might tax the counterfeit, it doesn't completely eliminate it. Just like with the spiders, where both genuine and fake gifts persist, we'll likely see both genuine and performative tactics coexist. The policing is always a step behind the signaling. It is not about stamping out fakes entirely, but about creating a dynamic equilibrium. Honestly, I think this is such a cool way to look at something that could seem like just internet drama. It's applying these deep evolutionary principles to a very modern cultural phenomenon. The researchers are showing how the economics of signaling, which we usually study in animals, plays out in our own social lives. It highlights how we're constantly navigating signals of trustworthiness and desirability, and how sophisticated our social systems are in trying to detect deception. Now, no study is perfect, and this one is no exception. The authors acknowledge that the performative male trend might be temporary, with specific tokens like tote bags coming and going. But they argue the underlying mechanism, the coevolution of cheap signals and their policing, is the important, lasting part. They also point out that this phenomenon is mostly observed in specific cultural groups, so it might not apply everywhere. And of course, there is the ongoing debate about whether these signals are truly about finding a mate or just about social status in general. Ultimately, this research suggests that the whole performative male idea isn't just about guys trying to look good. It's a window into a complex signaling system where cheap displays of virtue are challenged by a social detection apparatus. This apparatus taxes the fakes, driving displays towards more authentic, harder to fake corroboration, but also allowing a spectrum of signaling to persist. It is a reminder that in the messy world of human interaction, discerning honesty is an ongoing and often very public process. So, what do you guys think? Have you seen this performative trend in action? Do you agree with the researchers' explanation? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the science of signaling and deception, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more fascinating research, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.